Well, hi, folks. This is Lola, and welcome you to the Being Your Own CEO interview series. My goal with this is to introduce local Victoria solo entrepreneurs by giving them some profile on Google Plus and on YouTube, and to help them get started with their experience with the whole Google world. And I also love finding out what makes them tick as business people, because I know that we can all learn from their observations. So this morning, it's morning here in Victoria. I'd like to introduce Julia James. Welcome to our interview series, Julia.
Thank you, Lolan. It's my pleasure.
All right, on. So we'll just dive right in. When I read your career biography, I was struck by how often people never find out what their passion is until they're almost at the end of their university experience. And I sure noticed that in your biography, and I could certainly say that's also true of my own experience. So you began your career life. Well, you started out in Germany, and you started out in the science world. So tell us a little more about that. Here you are. I might point up right up front is that Julia is a career and life coach. So how did you end up there from the science world?
Yeah, so it's a longer story, but I'll make it short. Initially, what got me into science was a combination of things. A real concern for the environment. Like at the time, I was growing up in the 70s, where in Europe, we were faced by the acid rain and nuclear power, and all these things were just really front and center in the media and in my own life experience. And I felt like I needed to do something about that. And at the time, I thought the only way to do something about that is to go into science. And I also knew quite well that science wasn't my forte. That was I always had to study the hardest for math and geography and chemistry and physics. All those were really didn't come easy to me. But what I thought was that I would actually learn a lot more studying something that I had no clue about versus going into a subject matter that I felt quite confident about. Like, for example, I excelled in English and in German, and the languages came easy to me. But I thought that's really in my teenage years, that was like chickening out. Why would I do something that I already do well? I should do something that I have, that I really don't know how to, and I'll figure it out. And by that, I will grow the most. That was my strong belief. Now I know that that is actually not true. That you actually do learn the most and that you do grow the most when you focus on your strengths. Mm-hmm. And as a side effect, also, it makes you the happiest because learning something that you really comes very hard to you is a little bit like pushing a boulder up a mountain, and then it just rolls like right back at you, and you're like, okay, I have to push it back up, and it's hard work with very little rewards. And so I essentially was struggling through my whole scientific career. And at the point of writing my master thesis is really where it just slowly started to sink in that would be not a very fun life, to continue on that path of really pushing up that boulder, that mountain, and I just couldn't see myself doing this forever. And so I was already at that point. And then thankfully, I had this wonderful relationship with a colleague of mine. He was doing his PhD thesis, and I was working on my master's. And he helped me a lot with understanding statistics and data analysis and helping me get all those parts of my thesis done. And meanwhile, he was having challenges with his committee. And so I was listening to him. I was listening to his stories, and I was just helping him shift perspective and see things a little differently and understand people of like why they were upset with him when he sometimes had a very blunt way of saying things. And he was a brilliant scientist, but he didn't necessarily have the diplomacy required to deal with a graduate committee. And so one of those days when we had one of these chats, he just looked at me and he said, so just, Julia, tell me, why are you in science? And so I went into my story of, wanting to save the world and feeling like I needed to learn these things. And I'm fascinated with how everything is connected. And that is truly the case. I am fascinated by how everything impacts everything. And he just shrugged and he said, Julia, I think you would make a great counselor. And that was the first time really that somebody acknowledged that strength that was pretty obvious in me, but somebody actually said, I think you would make a great counselor. And I was like, whoa, okay. I had always kind of like, I'd of course, done a lot of it, but I'd never actually even considered that could be a career for me. Okay. So that was the first wake-up call, I would say, that sent me on a little different path. And at the time I was still, I had obviously invested so much into my scientific career. I was still under the belief that I needed to somehow make use of it. And so what I did as a way of essentially working with science, but not in science, was that I started focusing more on the people side of it in science. So I would facilitate workshops, I would organize conferences that brought different stakeholders in the scientific community together and help them collaborate more effectively. And as I was doing that, I realized that was like the people side of seeing people collaborate more effectively. That was actually more satisfying than all the content of climate change and forest management and whatever the conference or the workshop happened to be about. It was really, for me, it was more like helping people connect.
Okay, so let's fast forward, because you did end up feeling somewhat desperate and also feeling as though you needed some help, and you found a coach.
I did.
Who helped you get really clear about where you needed to go. And so you made the decision to go into coaching. So talk about that a little bit. I noticed from your website that you're a graduate of CTI, Coactive Training Institute, a very famous coaching school. So anything you want to say about your experience of learning and growing within the coaching world?
Yeah, happily. Well, it was, first of all, it was such a refreshing experience to do the coach training, because what a difference from studying geography and being in science and everything, where everything just came hard. Now it felt like I had found my tribe. All the people that were involved in coaching felt like those are my people, and everything we were learning felt like this is already what I'm doing. I'm just refining it. It was so easy. I still remember the day when I graduated, when I did my exam, oral coaching exam, written coaching exam. It was a day of celebration. It wasn't an exam day where I was, had sweaty palms and my heart was beating. It was just, I was on fire. So that was a really wonderful experience, transformational experience of really feeling I have arrived, I'm on the right path finally, and now I can really contribute with my greatest strengths and gifts, and by that really make a much greater contribution to the world. And I also by now feel that there is a strong connection with the health of our environment and the health of people. I feel like when we are happy, when we are doing what we love, well, we treat everything better. We treat the environment better. We treat our families better. We just we become happier people, and we contribute in the best way to the world.
So Julia,
so in a way, I feel like still.
I'm going to jump us. What
Sure.
I really want to hit on that point that you made about how what we do has that impact when we're in harmonious vibration, right?
Yes.
And one of the questions that I asked you about your life and for your biography was, what in your life gives you the most joy? And what was the answer? Well, I think I may have asked you for one thing.
And there were quite a few.
And you were unable to say one thing. But the piece that resonated for me, because it also marks how you and I met. Yes. Originally. Julia said that singing in harmony was one of her greatest joys. So that, I mean, when you brought that piece about the vibration that we bring into our environment. Mm-hmm. And that sense of harmony, that fits all together, doesn't it?
It does. And I actually also one day I wrote an article about what makes your heart sing. Because essentially that's the place that I guide people to, they find the career that truly makes their heart sing. And that's when they enter into that place of positive vibration and harmony, and they receive the challenges that are just right for them, and that are kind of the fun challenges, and they just they are able to really thrive. Mm-hmm. And yes, absolutely. In terms of singing, I love it, and it's always wonderful to see you across the room in the tenor section, and what a difference it makes. I mean, we just had an amazing concert over the weekend, and just like singing with 300 people in harmony is just another experience.
Well, and it's
also one of these things where all of our hearts beat as one. It's actually, there have been studies done that when you get into that harmonious place, that all of our hearts get in sync. And so imagining like 300 hearts beating all as one. Mm-hmm. And again, when in your career, when you find that sweet spot where you absolutely contribute with your greatest strengths, and you are just able to just fully be you, mm-hmm. then again, you get into harmony with all the people around you. And because you don't have to put up the barriers anymore. You don't have to put up the walls of pretending you're someone else. I mean, how many people go to work pretending that they're someone else just because they feel there's no place for them to show up who they are, mm-hmm. as who they are. Yeah. And so,
that's a really, really, really important an important thing for you to mention, how important it is to finally find the kind of work that expresses who we really are. And that leads me it's a lovely little transition to go into business. And I loved your response. You said, starting my career clarity coaching business was and still is the best way for me to fulfill my life mission. So that wouldn't it be wonderful if every person could actually say that about the career that they're in? Wow.
Absolutely. And that is my mission to help every person do that. And of course, not everybody is ready, but the ones that are ready and that just have that urge to really find the spot where they can shine and to get clear on their fulfilling career, those are the ones that I'm most interested in working with. And usually they're looking for a place where they get to be themselves and where they really get to shine in who they are, and also for a place where they know they're making a contribution that really matters to them. And so what I came up with is like this, I call it the elements of clear. So the word clear is essentially an acronym for claim your purpose, live your values, envision your fulfilling career, access your strengths, and release your fears. Wow. And so all these elements are part of getting to that place, because claiming your purpose really means getting in touch with that why. Why are you wanting to do something? And it's of course we work because we need money, we need to make a living, but really there's a bigger why, and usually that's the contribution that's really near and dear to our hearts. So we need to get clear on that. And living our values is really like we need to align with those aspects that really matter to us. And that's also where it usually rubs for people, is when they're misaligned. It means that their values are not honored in the work environment they are in, or whatever they are doing is absolutely against their values. And then the envision part, envision your fulfilling career, it's really important to actually get a sense of what will it be like when I have arrived. And even though you might not have no clue where it will be, but you will know the feeling, like how you want to feel day to day. And so we really strongly connect with that feeling part and get as much clarity around that. And that really helps move forward, because again, when we have a sense of what it will be like, what it will feel like, we will recognize it when we find it. And then accessing your strengths, and I've talked already a little bit about that, is that piece of really connecting with the things that come easy to you, and the things that are fun and joyful and playful, and sometimes also the things that have been pointed out to you as weaknesses. So, for example, sometimes people are very connected with their emotions. And sometimes that's like, oh, you cry so much, or you are like, and so they've actually started thinking about themselves that is something that they need to overcome, or that's bad. But actually, it could be that exact thing is one of their strengths. So there's a lot of confusion and misconception around what a strength is. And so really clarifying that and really getting people in touch with those pieces that come natural to them, that come easy to them, and that makes them feel, when they use them, they make them feel energized. So that's the key. Once you feel energized after an activity, you know that that's part of one of your strengths. Then the very important last letter, R, release your fears, is really the one thing that stops us. I mean, one of the songs we were singing on the weekend was, what are you waiting for? And what are you waiting for before you actually start this journey to get clear on your career? Is why are you waiting? Most of the time it's because you are scared, and how natural to be scared. And yet at the same time, looking those fears in the eyes and helping you release them and work with them so that they're no longer blocking you.
And taking the leap of faith.
Absolutely.
Another line from that song.
Spread your wings and fly. All those lines. I mean, that song was just so, so perfect.
Yeah. So what you're describing just makes me think of being in flow, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Mihail, I can never say his name. That American psychologist, but he's written a book called Flow. And when you read that and realize that when you're in that sweet spot, as you say, it just feels so right. That
Exactly.
yeah, and
That's exactly, it's that feeling of right. I
yes,
was also toying with the idea of using like Goldilocks as a metaphor because it's like that just right,
yeah,
not too big, not too small, just right.
right.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I
so.
love that story. But again,
So
it has to do with feeling it. You have to kind of lie in that bed and that's why one of the things I encourage my clients to do closer to when they have a feeling, oh, this might be the right path, this might be the right path, then to test drive it, to do informational interviews and kind of lie in that bed for testing in and see how does this feel like, how does a day in that career actually look like versus all the things we think about,
mhm.
because often it is quite different in action than on paper or in descriptions on the internet or whatever we might find with our research. We really have to really get a good feel for what it's like before we jump into it, because most of the clients I work with have been down the wrong path already, and so they don't want to just jump in to something that may yet again be not right for them.
So I did ask you who does your business serve, and you did say that, and I remember thinking to myself when I read your description, people just like you, the place that you were when you left the science world and found your rightful place in life coaching. So that is just really it's kind of interesting. But it seems that some of your clients have been somewhere and been in something. Well, I like some of the reasons that people find themselves not very happy.
Yeah.
Say something about that.
Yeah, because it really is. There are so many different ways that people come to this place of this is really not working for me anymore, and sometimes it's people have tried a lot of different things, and but just nothing really ever seemed to fit, and they're kind of at a loss. Well, I've tried this way, I tried that way, I've tried, because what we do is usually we kind of look out there. Oh, I guess I could do this, or maybe I try that for a while, but really the search for clarity begins within. And so once they start the process of actually getting clear inside that and know that feeling that they're looking for, then they'll actually recognize it outside. So
Uh,
way of coming to this place. Another one is also this like just feeling a little bit like stale and bored and no challenge left, and just like is that it,
all right.
is that all, and just
Yeah.
yeah, and for whatever reason, it might have been fine for a number of years, and maybe it had served for while bringing up children or things like that. But just coming to that place of this is not fulfilling me anymore, or it never really has. So those are some scenarios, and sometimes it's also external changes that happen. So, for example, I mean, we all know about all the reorganizations that happen in organization and government, and sometimes it actually leaves people somewhat misplaced. So they've kind of been moved out of their area of strength and now are struggling either with the area that they have been moved into, or with a new supervisor that's not, just the values are not aligned, they're not in sync. For whatever reason, it could come to a point where again they are thinking this is not right anymore, and what is, and But what all of them share, like all of my clients share the same desire to make a meaningful contribution, feel inspired by their work, and wanting to figure that out, what
Yeah.
that is.
Yeah. So I'm looking at our time here, and
Mhm.
we're fast approaching our our goal of 30 minutes. I think we're just about there. But I
Okay.
really wanted to point up that if you go to Julia's website, she has a number of things that could help one sort of get our lives back into flow, shall we say. I noticed that, well, first of all, she has written a book called The Mini Retreat Solution. And I love the byline for that. It said, weave moments of deep relaxation into your daily life. I love that.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that you had some rather nice little podcast type things about mini vacations and so forth. And another service that I didn't know about, you never mentioned it,
Mhm.
but I found it on your website that you offer a sort of a mini retreat or a workshop in a person's home.
I
And so
do.
I thought that was really clever and creative. But just before we close, I did want to give you an opportunity to speak about your upcoming retreat, actual retreat, and I
Mhm.
think that's sounds like something that there'd be a number of people listening that would be very interested. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It is happening on the Halloween weekend, which is very easy to remember, and on Galliano Island. And so what brought me to offer a retreat on career clarity is a number of reasons. I have been retreating, and I deeply know the value of retreating from personal experience for many, many years. So retreating actually means you go with the purpose, with the intention of special time away from computers, away from phones, away just from all the distractions from maybe kids and parents you might be caring for, and all the things that all the to-dos. You essentially remove yourself from all of that and go to a very special place in nature, and with usually a special intention of what you want to use that time for. And in the case of the career clarity retreat, it is to get in touch with that what is right for you place. And so really getting clear on what is your fulfilling career. And so that's why I thought it would be so wonderful to offer a retreat where that is the purpose. And one of the things that also often happens for people on that journey to career clarity is that it can feel somewhat isolating and lonely, because oftentimes you don't necessarily share with other people that you're wanting a change, because you don't really want it to be public knowledge. Because maybe you still want to work in your job until you find what that is that you truly want to do. So there's somewhat of an isolation and a loneliness that comes along with being on that path. And so I thought, how great would it be? And I have done courses in other formats, like online courses and in-person courses where people came together every week. And I always felt like there could be more interaction, there could be more actually support from each other on this journey. And I thought the retreat is the perfect setting for that, because deep conversations happen, and just also, even though we're all on our own individual journey, and the piece of what's right for each of us is different, however, we are all on that same path. So actually by doing this process together, by engaging on this journey together, we're actually supporting each other. And that's where I come back to the, to the 300 hearts beating as one. So in this case, it will be 12. That's my maximum number. So it will be an intimate group, but we'll all be on this path together, and we'll explore together, and we'll support each other on that journey. And we'll also have a lot of fun. It's going to be really wonderful to just be there in nature, and I may even add some singing. I probably can't help myself. Because I find that there is a song for every situation, and on this career clarity journey as well, there is often a song that inspires us to take that next step. And there will be movement, so we'll be engaged with mind, body, spirit, and really supporting each other to get clear on our fulfilling careers.
So, and the other thing that I wanted to point up, and to for the benefit of our listeners, is that you can find the page on Julia's website, juliajames.ca/retreats, and all the details and the button for signing up are right there. So you want to, if that sounds interesting, that would be the place that you want to go. So Julia, I mean, I could keep this going for another hour. I can think of,
Me too.
I can think of another dozen other things that it would be really fun for us to explore together. So, partially because we're very much kindred spirits in
Yes.
relation to our coaching. All the things that you've said about career coaching applies to solo entrepreneurs as well. So
that's so true. And sometimes they are solo entrepreneurs, like just the my web designer, Caroline, who started out as a fashion designer, which was working for her at some time, but then it wasn't anymore. And so sometimes that happens, that I work with solo entrepreneurs as well, that have come to a crossroad of this is not really fulfilling my life. I thought it would, and not anymore.
Well, and that's because I think both you and I have a wide definition of career.
That's so true.
It means a whole lot of things. Yeah. So yes. I think we're running over just a little bit here. So I think I want to close this session now. And I would like to do that with an invitation to our listeners to join my Being Your Own CEO community on Google+, where you can participate in a weekly Success Circle hangout where we give and receive support and help to remove some of those stumbling blocks that most solo entrepreneurs experience. So, and if you would like to know a little more about my solo enterprise program, you can see my loweland.com here on the screen. And so I would like to say, this is Loweland, your solo enterprise coach, signing off for today.